Assalamu alaikum, students. As you know that we are doing trigonometry nowadays, and in trigonometry there is one topic which is basically how to draw the trigonometric graphs and how to solve the trigonometric equations. So this concept I'm trying to explain you guys. Although in the class on Thursday, I did explain you the background of sine, cosine, and tan graphs, what is a quadrant diagram, and how we move from first quadrant to second, second to third, third to fourth. But before I move to the worksheet solving, why not I can revise with you quickly the quadrant diagram. In quadrant diagram, you start moving from 0 degree to 90 degrees, and then from 90 degrees to 180, and then from 180 you move to 270, and 270 you move to 360. So within one rotation, you cover or you pass over four quadrants. So from 0 to 90, this is my first quadrant. From negative 90 to 180, this is my second quadrant. From 180 to 270, this is my third quadrant. And from 270 to 360 is my fourth quadrant. Any your plane is, or your coordinate plane is divided into four equal parts. That's why we use a word quadrant. Clear? One more thing. In the first quadrant, we write all acute angles. The definition of acute angle is any angle which is between 0 to 90, that is an acute angle. Now, all angles which lies between 90 to 180 are obtuse angles. Any angle which lies between 180 to 270, it is a reflex angle. And any angle from 270 to 360 is also reflex angle. Reflex angle is that angle which is more than 180 but less than 360 degrees. If I give you any angle, suppose I give you 45 degrees. Now 45 degree is in a first quadrant. I want to take the sine of 45, I want to take the cosine of 45, and I also want to take the tan of 45. Now, when I use my calculator, boys, let me open the calculator and check. First, make sure your calculator must be in a degree mode. If I take sine of 45, I just check my answer is positive or negative. Answer is positive, 0.707, and answer is positive. Same thing happens when I write cosine of 45, it gives me positive, and tan of 45 gives me positive. So all the trigonometric functions are giving you a positive answer. So that's why I must say in the first quadrant, all positive. In the first quadrant, all positive. That's why I will write it here A. A stands for all trigonometric functions. They will give you positive answers for any acute angle. Now let's take any angle from 90 to 180. Suppose I take 140 degrees. Now 140 is an obtuse angle. Let's try to take sine of 140. My calculator, I know it will give me a positive answer. Cosine of 140, when you try to get it from calculator, you get a negative answer. But tan of 140, when you take it, that will also give you a negative answer. So you say, Mr. Umar, I am getting a positive answers for the sine if my angle is obtuse or in the second quadrant. So that's why I will write it here S. So S stands in the second quadrant because only if I take the sine of any angle in the second quadrant, that gives me the positive answer. Now let's go to the third quadrant and pick any angle. in the third quadrant. I'm sure you guys will pick any angle, but here I'm gonna pick, suppose, 250 degrees. Now 250 is in between 180 and 270, so 250 is a reflex angle. Let's take sine of 250, take cosine of 250, and tan of 250. Through the calculator, I will come to know that this answer will be negative. This answer will be negative, but the tan will give you a positive answer. So why not? I can write here a capital T in the third quadrant to represent that if I pick any angle in the third quadrant, I will always get a positive answer in for the tan. But for that particular angle which lies in third quadrant, sine and cosine will give us negative answers. And same rule applies when I move to the fourth quadrant and pick any angle. Suppose I pick 300 degree, which is between 270 and 360, and 300 is a reflex angle. So sine of 300 I try to find from a calculator. Same for cosine of 300 and tan of 300. I'm sure you guys can guess that you will be getting negative, but this time cosine will be positive and tan will be negative. So as cosine gives you a positive answer, it starts with C. That's why in this quadrant, to learn that all this discussion which I have done with you through ASTC, it can be well memorized. There are different ways to learn this ASTC. Some people say that all people are using STC, famous brand, okay, of telecommunication in Saudi Arabia. Or you can say all students tasted chocolate. Okay, so any sentence which can help you to learn ASTC. So this is a quadrant diagram. This is a quadrant or ASTC diagram. This is called ASTC diagram. Now there is another diagram I'm gonna draw for you, and that is called a quadrant diagram. Now ASTC diagram is done, but the second is quadrant diagram. What is a quadrant diagram? Let me write here X, and here I write 180 minus X. I'll tell you why I wrote it. And here I write 180 plus X, and here I write 360 minus X. Now, how did I choose these angles? Okay, let me explain you how did I get these angles. I'm going to draw a straight line here, and then I draw a straight angle. Now, this angle is 30 degrees. Agreed. But this angle is also 30 degrees. This is also 30. And this is also 30. Done? So right here 30. Now these angles are connected with each other. How they are connected? Suppose if I move from 0 degree to this, definitely this is 30 degrees. But if I move from here to here, for sure you say, Mr. Omar, you have to write 180 minus 30, which is 150. Keep this point in your focus. The next thing is I move in this direction and stop here. What is this? Is it not 180 plus 30? Now, if I move from here all the way till here, don't you think I'm going to write it as 360 minus 30? So if a person has any angle in the first quadrant, there is a connection of that angle with the other quadrants. Now, why not? I can do an experiment. Take sine 30. For sure, calculator will give you 0.5. Take sine of 150. That will give you 0.5. Take sine of, what is 180 plus 30? 210. Sine of 210. That will give you minus 0.5. And take sine of 330 degrees will give you negative 0.5. Don't you think, guys, all of them magnitude wise are giving you 0.5, 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. But two answers are positive. Yani this answer and this answer is positive, but these two answers are negative. How this was happened? It was happened because of ASTC. In the first quadrant, sine 30 will give you positive answer. Yes, I got a positive answer. Sine of 150 is an obtuse angle and it lies in a second quadrant. That's why I got a positive answer. But sine of 210 is a reflex angle and lies in a third quadrant. When I take the sine of this and I got a negative answer. And here I got a negative answer. Now you will definitely think, why, Mr. Romer, you are giving this whole explanation. So my reply back to you is, I want to connect the angle of the first quadrant with the other quadrants. Then again, your answer will come, your question will come, Mr. Romer, why we are doing it? Now, I will reply to you. Our calculator is capable of giving you angle only in the first quadrant. And that's why we call it as a basic angle. Basic angle, or some books, it is written reference angle. So reference angle is always an acute angle. Your calculator is capable of giving you acute angle. But if sine, I'm writing here sine of x, and there is a positive answer, I want it, positive answer. Now, if I have a positive answer already, suppose I'm writing here 0.752. Now, you say that, okay, Mr. Umar, since the sine is a positive answer, so maybe my x is in the first quadrant or maybe my x is in the second quadrant. Because sine is positive according to ASTC. Sine is positive in the first two quadrants. So if sine is positive in the first two quadrants, so I need to find the second value of x. So the second value of x, the diagram which was drawn for the second quadrant, the formula is 180 minus x. Now, another important point is, if I'm trying to solve sine of x is equal to negative 0.712. Now, my dear friends, I am definitely asking you, since my answer is negative and sine gives you a negative answer in which quadrant? You will definitely say, Mr. Umar, in the third quadrant and in the fourth quadrant. But believe me, when I write this thing in my calculator, shift sign, negative. I think you can ignore the negative sign, but okay, if you want to write 0.712. Now, interesting thing is when you press this one, your calculator, didn't I say that your calculator will give you the answer in the first quadrant? I'm not talking about negative 45. That will overcomplicate situation. So the better thing is when you try to get your reference angle or a basic angle, and when you want to take a shift sign, shift cosine, shift tan, ignore the negative sign, because negative sign has served the purpose, and I already told you that you need to fall in third and fourth quadrant. However, for finding the reference angle, you need to ignore the negative sign if it is there. So look at that. My reference angle is 45.4 degrees. 45.4 degrees. Now I want to kick this angle to go to the third quadrant. For the third quadrant, the formula is 180 plus x. So if I want to get the the angle, the reference angle in the third quadrant, I should have written 180 plus 45.4, and then I get my answer. And there is another angle required here in the fourth quadrant since my answer was negative. Now, how can I make use of a reference angle? So the formula is for fourth quadrant is 360 minus 45.4. And then I get my two answers, which is the third quadrant and the fourth quadrant answer. This will give me the final answer. I know so far you understood maybe 20-30% because I didn't start solving full questions. Before I start solving full questions, I want to redraw the sine, cosine, and tan graphs. Now, the sine graph, when you try to draw, boys, first thing is you need to draw your boundary line because your sine graph cannot go beyond 1 and it cannot go from down further from -1 line. So this is y is equal to 1 is and y is equal to -1. These two lines are those lines. Within these lines, your sine graph will be plotted. And don't you remember that when I took the angles, my maximum angle was 0 to 360 within one rotation. And then this one rotation was divided into 4 equal parts. This was 90 degrees, this was 180 degrees, and this was 270 degrees. And then you can make a grid like this. It helps you to make your sketch more clear and accurate. If in the calculator I write sine of 0 degrees, my calculator will give me 0. So I can put a dot over here. So sine 0 is 0. Now what is the next 90? Sine 90, when I put it in my calculator, that gives me 1. So it is 1. When I write in my calculator sine of 180, that will give me 0. So I put a dot here. When I write sine of 270 degree in the calculator, it gives me -1. So I put a dot here. When I write sine of 360, the calculator gives me 0. I put a dot here. So allow me to join the curves like this and make a wave. So this is a sine graph. This is a sine graph. Now let's come to ASTC diagram and verify it. Well, is this the good verification, or is it a good to acquire some confidence what we gained from the ASTC diagram? Answer is yes. Mr. Omar, from 0 to 90, this is my first quadrant. This is my first quadrant. So is the sine positive here? Answer is yes, sine is positive because it lies above the x-axis. So in the first quadrant, the graph is above the x-axis. So all values are positive. All values of sine are positive in the first quadrant. Now let's go to the second quadrant from 90 to 180. This is my second quadrant. Can you imagine all values? If I pick this value, all values are positive. They are showing the positive values on the y-axis. So sine, didn't I say S means sine is always positive here? Let's go to the third quadrant. In a third quadrant, all values of sine are negative. Negative values. So we remember that in the third quadrant, only tan was positive and sine is negative. Let's go to the fourth quadrant now. In the fourth quadrant, you can see the graph is below the x-axis, so it means tan sine will be negative. Yes, it is negative. All negative values are assumed by the graph. So in the fourth quadrant, sine is negative. I drew the sine graph in front of you and I try to correlate it with the ASTC diagram, which helps you to acquire some confidence how the sine graph looks like. Sine graph is like a wave. Now tan graph, second is cosine graph. Now cosine graph, if I want to draw, again, I have to draw 1, which is the top boundary, -1, which is the boundary from down, Our graph cannot go cross these lines. It will stay in between. Within one rotation from 0 to 360, boys, I need to divide it into four equal parts: 90, 180, 270. Complete the grid. Now, next thing is, what is cosine of 0? Check it on the calculator. What is cosine of 90? Check it. Cosine of 180? Check. Cosine of 270? Check. Cosine of 360? Check. I check that cosine 0 gives me 1. Cosine 90 gives me 0. Cosine 180 gives you a -1. Cosine 270 is going to give me, this gives me 0. Just hold on. Cosine 0, 1, cosine 90, 0, cosine 180 is -1, cosine 270 is 0, and cosine of 360 is also what? 1. Can I plot the points? I put it here. The point, cosine 0 is 1, cosine 90 is 0, cosine 278, 180 is -1, cosine 270 is 0, cosine of 360 is 1. Now, don't draw the V here. That's wrong. In order to draw the accurate graph, first make the wavy curve like this, a bowl here. And then it should be concave down like this, because it will create a wave here. But we are not taking the sine graph beyond 360 or below than 0 degrees. We are not taking that, the clockwise angles. So we are taking only the cosine graph. It looks like the necklace. The cosine graph from 0 to 360 looks like a necklace. Now, ASTC diagram, let me draw that. ASTC diagram. In the first quadrant, is your graph above the x-axis? Yes, positive. Cosine is positive. In the second quadrant, your graph is below. Cosine is negative. Yes, we know that. In the second quadrant, only sine is positive. Go to the third quadrant. Third quadrant, tan is positive, and then cosine is negative because the graph is below. But the cosine is positive in the fourth quadrant, and the graph is aligned above the axis. So it is a good verification from the ASTC diagram that how the graph behaves in different quadrants. Now we move to the tan graph. In tan graph, you need to be very careful. Why? No need to put here +1 or -1, because this is not a bounded graph, tan graph. Sine is between -1 and 1. Cosine is between -1 and 1, but tan is not between -1 and 1. So what we are going to do? 0, 360, then divide this into 4 equal parts. This is 90, this is 180, this is 270, and 360. Next, when I write tan 0, it gives me 0. When I write tan 90, calculator gives me an error. Error means it is infinity. When I write in the calculator tan 180, it gives me 0. When I write tan 270, it gives me error. Error means it is infinity. And tan of, or negative infinity, tan of 360, it is again 0. How to deal with the error? Error means this is that point where the graph cannot be drawn smoothly. So the graphs are separated from each other. So when the error comes at 90, you need to draw the vertical asymptotic line. Like this is a vertical line. This is a barrier. The graph cannot cross this barrier. And at 90 degree, I receive the error. So you need to put the dotted line, vertical line. Then after that, my friends, you found tan 0 is 0, 180, and 360. Mr. Omar, this is not enough for me to complete the graph. Look, information is not given. No, I want to tell you. You can draw the graph like this and get closer to the vertical line, but you're not allowed to touch the vertical line since This vertical line, x is equal to 90, is a vertical asymptote, and x is equal to 270 is also a vertical asymptote. So you cannot touch them. Another important point is, Mr. Omar, shall I draw the graph like this? Answer is no. In tan, you cannot draw like this. In tan, you need to draw the graph. If you finishes from the left hand side up, now you will come from down. So I wish like you have played the snake game. So the snake goes from up, yani up in the top of the screen. Then the same snake comes from down of the screen. So like this, you drew that. And can we complete it in the same way? Yes. And then it comes from down. So this is the tan graph. Now try to relate it with ASTC diagram. This is ASTC. In the first quadrant, your tan is above, so positive. In the second quadrant, it is below, because we know that sine is positive in the second quadrant. Third quadrant, yes, the graph goes above the x-axis, so it is positive. It is verified. And finally, we reach to the fourth quadrant, where the graph is below the x-axis and cosine is positive. So it is a good verification of ASTC diagram. Now we are ready to start solving the sheet. First is we need to sketch the graph. So sketch the graph of y is equals to sine of x. At first, my dear friends, you need to take your ruler and draw your boundary lines, boundary horizontal lines. Y is equal to one line. And also you need to draw your y is equals to minus one line. After drawing y is equal to 1 and y is equal to minus 1 line, then take the half of 360, which is 180. Half of 180 is 90. Half of 180 and 360 is 270. And now complete the grid in this way. Draw the vertical line, but dotted. Dotted. And also at the end, dotted. Now sine graph starts from where? This is 0, sine 0, 0. Sine 90 is 0, 1. Sine of 180 is 0. Sine of 270 is negative 1 from the calculator. Sine of 360 is 0. Can I join the graph? Sorry. So this is the sine graph. If you want to draw it with the pen, since it is a sketch, so he looks into the characteristics. It should be correct. If your hand moves like a little bit up and down, there is no big issue created by the examiner. Now, after doing the sketch, the second question is always coming from the examiner to solve the equation algebraically. Solving equation is not a big deal. Look at that. The range is given from 0 to 360. And it is in IGCSE, it is always from 0 to 360 degrees. Now keep the two diagrams in your mind. First diagram was ASTC diagram. And second diagram was quadrant diagram. X 180 minus x. And you have to draw it with every question. Okay. Now I want to solve this question. I have to make sine x as a subject. So 3 Sine of x is equal to negative 1. Sine of x is equal to negative 1 over 3. Bravo. Now check that your negative 1 over 3. Your sine of x gives you a negative answer. Negative answer. So sine is negative in which quadrant? Sine is negative in these two quadrants, third and fourth. Now, what did you learn from me? I want to get my reference angle. So what is my reference angle? Take out your calculator, write shift sine, ignore the negative sign I told you, just write 1 over 3. And you remember my words? I said calculator is capable of giving you answer only in the first quadrant, yani acute angle. So the acute angle comes to me 19.47. Although we should write it to the one decimal place, but for the sake of accuracy, as we are trying to use this answer in the next stage, so keep this answer to the two decimal places. So 19.47. Is my job done? No, my job is not done because I got my angle only in that quadrant, which is not needed by me. Can I transfer this 19.47 into the third quadrant and into the fourth quadrant? For this, I need to make use the formulas for the third quadrant. So I should write 180 plus 19.47. And here I need to write 360 minus 19.47. Okay, so use calculator. In the calculator, I'm going to write 180 180 plus 19.47. That gives me 199.47. 199.47. Now you are allowed to write the answer to 1 dp. So this is 199.5 degrees. First answer is found. How to get the second answer? 360 minus 19.47, and that gives me 350.43. 350.53, sorry. Okay, 53. But I need to write the answer to the one decimal place, so 350.5, 1 dp. Can I write these answers in the answering space? 199.5 and 350.5, and the degree is already written over there. This is the way of solving questions. Next question is the cosine graph. For cosine graph, I need to draw y is equals to 1 line. I need to draw y is equals to negative 1 line. I need to split or divide 360 into 4 equal parts. And this is 90, this is 180, this is 270. Then draw the vertical dotted lines. After that, the cosine, I know cosine of 0. Cosine of 0 is 1. Cosine of 180 is 90 is 0. Cosine of 180 is negative 1. Cosine of 270 is 0. Cosine of 360 is 1. Now I'm ready to draw the graph. First, finish it with from 90 to 270. It's like the half wave. And then you need to draw the graph like this, concave down. And this is from here also, concave down. So like a necklace, the cosine graph is drawn. I want to solve this algebraically. 2 cosine of x is equal to 1. Cosine of x is equals to half. Bravo. I got a positive answer. Now, quadrant diagram ASTC. Cosine is positive only in this quadrant, first quadrant, all positive. And cosine is also positive in fourth quadrant. this is your x, and this is 360 minus x. Let me try to get my reference angle. For my reference angle, I need to write shift cosine of half. So this is shift cosine of half. It will come to me 60 degree, I think. Shift cosine of 0.5. It gives me 60 degrees. Yes, we got 60 degrees. So the reference angle is also included into my solution. So first answer is 60. But second answer is 360 minus 60, which is 300 degrees. If you really want to check your answer that you got your answer right, then there is a second way which I want to teach in this particular question. That is called equation solver way. So I want to explain you the equation solver way. Equation solver way is write the full equation to cosine of x, bracket close, -1 equal 0. Okay, then you need to press shift, solve, write your guess closer to 60, which is almost closer to 60, 55. So my first answer is 60. Yes, I got a correct answer. Now press the equal sign and change your guess closer to 300. So I'm going to put 300 and supposedly 10 degrees. I'm putting 310. So my guess is changed. So I got my answer 300 degrees. If you want to check the previous question's answer, let us do this. What was the question? The question was 3 sine x. So 3 sine of x, close the bracket, plus 1 equals 0. Shift solve. Now let me put my guess closer to 199.5. So I'm going to put my guess as 180 or 185. My answer is 199.47. Accurate to the one decimal place, 199.5. Change your guess and write it closer to 350. I write 345. And press the equal sign. So it gives me 340.5. So let me correct it. It should have been 340.5. Okay, what I got it. Let's go to the question number 3, where he is requiring from us the tan graph. Did you see that already examiner has drawn the vertical line 90 and 270, but maybe in the final exam it will not be written for you. So this is 180, which is not shown. And you remember when I do tan 0, it is here and here. It moves like this, moves like this, and this. This is the tan graph. Now tan of x equal to -1. So I got a negative answer as per ASTCD. Tan is negative in this quadrant and in this quadrant. And through the quadrant diagram, if you get x, transfer x here, formula is 180 minus x, and transfer the x here, so the formula is 360 minus x. But can I get my x? The reference angle, I told you, ignore the negative sign, just write tan, inverse tan of 1. Calculator will give you 45. So what is my answer? 180 negative 45 and 180 360 negative 45, and that is 315, and this is, I think, 135 degrees. These are the two answers. If you want to verify your answer from the calculator, write tan of x equals -1, shift solve, give a guess closer to 130, 135. So my accurate answer is 100 and let me check it again. Oh, why I wrote here. Let me check this again. Solve it for what was the guess I had? 135. 130. For example, I put 130. Did you see that I did a mistake? I wrote inverse tan. No, I'm writing tan of x. It's a tan of x because the original equation is tan of x is equal to -9. Shift, solve, put your guess closer to 135. I'm putting 130. Calculator gave me 135. Now change your guess and put your guess closer to 315. I'm putting 310, suppose. So it has made it correct, 315. Next graph is sine graph. You already know it. I need not to explain you. Sine of x is equal to negative 0.5. I want to solve. This is giving you a negative answer as per ASTC. I am expecting to get my answer into third quadrant and fourth quadrant. These are the quadrants. But this is my x, the reference angle. If I want to shift it to the third quadrant, formula is 180 plus x. And if you want to shift it to the fourth quadrant, the formula is 360 minus x. All right, shift sign. Shift sign, ignore the negative sign, just write 0.5. Calculator will give you 30 degrees. So 180 plus 30 and 360 minus 30, I will get my two answers in the same way. Clear? And then we have to draw the cosine graph. You already know, like a necklace, it comes to us. Cosine of x is equal to 0.75. This is positive. Cosine is positive in this quadrant and this quadrant, according to ASTC. And I want to get my reference angle. So shift cosine of 0.75. I get my x and shift it to the fourth quadrant with the formula is 360 minus x. So this is, let's get our answer from a calculator. Shift cosine of 0.75. This gives me 41.41. 41.1.41 or 41.4 to one decimal place. Second is use this answer as an ANS. So like 360 minus ANS, it gives me 315.18.6. So 360 minus 41.41, which is equals to 318.6. And you can also check your answer through the equation solver. Tan graph, we already know. It is like this. This is 180. I want to solve this equation. So 2 tan of x is equals to 3. Tan of x is equals to 3 over 2. Got it? Now tan gives a positive answer. This is a positive answer. Tan is positive in this quadrant according to ASTC. In this quadrant, first and third. This is ASTC. First quadrant. Shift, get a reference angle, inverse 3 over 2, that is my x. If you want to shift your x to the third, the formula is 180 plus x. So inverse tan, let me get it. Inverse tan of 1.5, that gives me 56.31. 56.31, the acute angle, reference angle, 56.31. And now I want to add 180 into it. So use this as an answer. 180 plus answer. That gives me 236.3. So 236.3 as one decimal place answer. Let's go to the sign of x. So 180, 90, 270, y is equals to 1, y is equals to -1, complete by grid. Sine is like a wave. This. You can draw like this. You can draw like this, the sine graph. I want to solve 2 sine of x is equal to 1.2. Sine of x is equal to 1.2 over 2. And that gives me sine of x is equal to 0.6. This is a positive answer. I'm expecting my answer in the first two quadrants because sine is positive in the first two quadrants. Get my reference angle. My reference angle x is shift sine or inverse sine of 0.6. So this is my x, which is inverse sine of 0.6. To transfer angle x into the second quadrant, formula is 180 minus inverse sine of 0.6, and then I can easily solve and write my, and this is inverse sine of 0.6. I want to save time, that's why I'm copying the exact answers. Inverse sine of 0.6. X cosine graph. Okay, divide your 360 into 4 equal parts. This is y is equal to 1, y is equal to 1, minus 1, complete the grid. Okay, cosine graph starting from here, this, and this. You always complete this one, and then this, and this. This is a cosine graph. Then after that, guys, 5 cosine of x is equal to -2, cosine of x is equal to -2 over 5, and now ASTC. Cosine gives you a negative answer in this quadrant and in this quadrant. Any second and third quadrant. Second and third quadrant. But calculator needs to ignore this negative sign and just to get my reference angle, x is shift cosine. I don't need this reference angle, but this answer will help me to send the answer into the second quadrant and third quadrant. The second quadrant angle is 180 minus x, and for third quadrant is 180 plus x. And I'm writing exact answer to save time. 180 minus shift cosine of 2 over 5. And here I'm writing 180 plus shift cosine or inverse cosine of 2 over 5. Whatever the answer comes, you need to write the answer to 1 dp and this answer to 1 dp. Next, I want to draw the tan graph. So it is like this, 180, like this, like this. Tan of x is equals to 0. It's the positive answer. It's a positive. So tan is positive in which quadrant? Tan is positive in this quadrant and this quadrant. So shift tan of 0.5. This is my first answer. And 180 plus shift tan of 0.5. 180 plus shift tan of 0.5. Next, sine graph equals to 1 is equals to -1. Completing the grid. Sine graph is like this. 3 sine of x is equal to 2. Sine of x is equal to 2 over 3, positive. Sine is positive in the first quadrant and the second quadrant. So this is inverse sine of 2 over 3. This is my x. And 180 minus x, which is 180 minus inverse sine of 2 over 3. Let me write my answer, inverse sine of 2 over 3. And this is 180 minus inverse sine of 2 over 3. Cosine of x y is equals to 1, y is equals to minus 1, completing the grid. That's a sine graph. It is like this. And 4 cosine of x is equal to negative 1. Cosine of x is equal to negative 1 over 4. Negative. The sign is negative in this quadrant. But I need to get my reference angle. For reference angle, ignore the negative sign. Just write negative. Don't write negative for the calculator. So this is shift cosine of 1 over 4. The first quadrant and second quadrant is 180 minus shift cosine of 1 over 4. And third quadrant is 180 plus shift cosine of 1 over 4. And then you copy them here. 180 minus shift cosine of 1 over 4. And 180 plus shift cosine of 1 over 4. Next tan, 180. Tan of x is equal to negative 2. So negative means tan is negative in according to AST in these quadrants. ASTC shows you the tan is negative in second and fourth quadrant. Get your x. Inverse tan of 2. Don't write the negative sign. And if you want to send it here, 180 minus inverse tan of 2, 360 minus inverse tan of 2. These are my answers. 180 minus inverse tan of 2, 360 minus inverse tan of 2. Next, line graph. Again, y is equals to 1, y is equals to minus 1. Complete the grid. Sine graph is like a wave. Sine graph is like a wave. Now, sine of x is 0.25. This is positive. Sine is positive in the first two quadrants. If the sine is positive in the first two quadrants, so this is x, which is inverse sine of 0.25, and this is 180 minus shift sine of 0.25, and I get my answer. Cosine graph, y is equals to 1, y is equals to minus 1. Complete the grid. The cosine graph, first you need to draw like this, then concave down, cosine of x is equal to 0.2. It is positive. The sign is positive as per ASTC. The sign is positive in this quadrant and this quadrant. So first and the fourth quadrant. Get your basic angle or reference angle. Shift cosine 0.2. Send it here. 360 minus shift cosine of 0.2. So first answer, shift cosine of 0.2, you can write it as 1 dp. Then 360 minus shift cosine of 0.2. Tan graph goes up 180 like this and like this, 3 tan of x is equal to negative 1. Tan of x is equal to negative 1 over 3. This is negative. Tan is negative as per ASTC diagram. It is negative here in the second quadrant. It is negative in the fourth quadrant. But can I get my basic angle? In order to get my basic angle, ignore the negative sign. Don't write in the calculator, just write 1 over 3. And now to transfer the angle into the second quadrant, 180 minus inverse tan of 1 over 3. And the fourth quadrant is 360 minus inverse tan of 1 over 3. And that will give you your answer. The same way, guys, you can continue and solve the whole sheet. Thank you. for your time. And I wish, like you, learn everything today in this important session.